Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show, How to Live a Richer Life. I have with me Mike and Ganesh. Like last time, we explored one aspect of living a richer life. Today, we are gonna focus on another angle, which I find really interesting. Friendships and mentoring, how that makes your life more meaningful and richer. So, yeah, Mike and Ganesh would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Serby. Ganesh, good to see you again. So let's start with mentoring. One of the things in my life to build success wasn't just the parental mentoring I started with. So you don't really have a choice on that mentoring, right? And they do give you skill sets, in my opinion, that are very valuable to me. My discipline, my work ethic, they all come from my parents. But there's areas in my life that my parents maybe didn't have experience with, and an outside mentor can be really helpful.
I
Absolutely. And thanks so much, Sylvie and Mike, for having me as well. Um, I think human beings are inherently social beasts. It's in our biology, in our DNA, where we need that interaction. And we all have goals of some sort, short-term goals and long-term goals. And we learn from one another. And sometimes, mentorship is a way of speeding up that learning such that you can reach those goals sooner than later, and hopefully make our lives a little bit richer than it would have been without those mentors.
I agree with you. Sometimes just I really love dancing. So people say that, yeah, you can learn dance by just watching some moves on the TV. But once you start taking instructions, the journey becomes so much quick. Otherwise, I think we all are capable of reaching to that end goal on our own. But if we take some external help from some experts, they just put us to the right path with their rich experience, whether it's swimming or anything, even about like taking some technical skills. Like I remember my physics teacher from the school days. I at some point I used to love it, but then there was like some problem in the school. Our teacher was not good and I used to hate the subject. Then I got a great mentor. He just explained certain things and I had this aha moment. I was like, wow, it just clicks to me. Otherwise I would have reached there by spending maybe like 500 hours, but this person made it in like 5 to 10 hours. So I really respect mentors.
It's amazing the value that they can bring to you. And it's not important to only have one mentor, right? So depending, like you just said, in one subject, you had a mentor that really kind of accelerated your ability to learn a subject and develop your interest in that subject. And that could be in almost anything. So work-wise, you may want to find a job, and you may want a job that somebody else you see has that kind of life you like, job-wise. And that's a person you should pursue for their advice and knowledge and guidance through that. And I know some of the people here, Ganesh in particular, has mentored individuals for pursuing careers. And I think that's also a positive thing. Once you get to that stage of knowledge, it's great to start mentoring other individuals. So if you feel like you're going to be a burden to somebody asking them to mentor you or guide you in an area, don't. It's actually a pleasure. Once you develop a knowledge of something and all the work that took to develop that knowledge, you're happy to pass it on because you had so many people invest in you over time.
Yes, absolutely. And it goes back to my own personal philosophy, which may be different from others. How do we socialize and build interactions that we can learn from one another? And number two, how do we choose people that adds value to our own life? And to Mike's point earlier, you could choose a mentor, but sometimes if he's in a family type of dynamic, you may not be able to choose that mentor. For example, your parents arguably could be a mentor. You can't really choose your parents. So in that case, you may have to be creative and choose other things such as cousins or people outside of a nuclear family who can be potential mentors. So I think the ability to choose, you will have to be creative, but also figure out what is within your control of
Right.
choosing.
Yeah. So I have a
Now, do
question.
you think, I'm sorry, Serby, do you feel like if you feel like you're missing something, is it sometimes you're like, oh, I don't have this skill set? Don't you think that mentoring is always good at filling that? I mean, you don't necessarily have somebody directly connected to you that is able to fill a gap that you feel like, I want my life to be X. Who do I talk to help me get there?
Absolutely. But you have to be cautious of your own bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
your own time and the mentor's time as well.
That's true.
You could do a path of, I identify the skill. Let's say I want to learn how to eat sushi better. I'm just making up a random skill that needs some sort of improvement, which chopsticks is a complicated skill, right? So with that said, do we want to have 10 mentors who have specialties in sushi, or do we want to pick one? Because if you spread yourself too thin, you'll be doing yourself injustice as well as your potential mentors down the road. So it's a concept of having too many chefs in the kitchen, where you want to find that sweet balance altogether. So it goes back to how you invest our time, like a portfolio. You want to have a diversified portfolio, but not too diversified. Otherwise, you'll be stretching yourself too thin to get any outsized returns.
Sure.
So how do you find a mentor, like outside, say, family and personal relationships? Like, do you just, if you admire somebody, you know at surface, right? Like this person might be a good fit. How would you recommend, Ganesh? Like, if I want to make you my mentor, how should I come and connect with you?
That's a good question. I mean, typically coffee chats. You say, hey, I like to grab coffee one day. You see this person's enthusiasm. You see whether this person is prepared. Does the person give me energy to make me feel good that, yeah, this is a person I want to get to know better and potentially help out or receive help from. And is a person open and honest? Obviously not too honest, where you bring in personal baggage or professional baggage, but setting strong boundaries. And basically, you can reverse engineer or work backwards. Let's say 5 years from now or 10 years from now, does this mentee want to be where I am? If that's the case, then maybe I can help out more so. Or something of that sort of dynamic where I can work, 5 years down the road, I want to be like that guy, and that guy can help me to become like him or her.
So basically, you're suggesting that people should be pretty open to approach the people they admire, they think they can learn from something, and mostly people who have reached at a certain stage or accomplished certain thing, they would be also pretty open to share that knowledge, because I think by sharing we all understand that we also grow more, learn, and sharing is of course caring. So people are generally good. So we should encourage people, our friends and family, to reach out to anybody whom they feel they can learn something, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too. Interesting, Serbi, is that it does provide a recognition of somebody's skill, right? So sometimes it's very honoring to ask somebody to educate you in an area that you feel like you could use their wisdom in, right? You're showing them honor by saying, hey, I recognize you have this knowledge. You're very good in this area of your life. I would love to get your advice, your opinion on how I can apply that in my own life and how I can have success around it. I think that's fantastic.
Okay, I have a different question now. Say you are at a company or working with other professionals, and you really like somebody's maybe soft skills, somebody's technical skills, and work environments could be intimidating, right? As there is a competition. How would you suggest someone to approach, whether it might be a colleague or it might be somebody in a different team? So what would be the best way to approach somebody to become their mentee?
Yeah, I think Ganesh made this point earlier. You just make it very easy, the barrier of entry very easy. Hey, do you mind sitting down for a half an hour for coffee with me? I have a conversation. I'd like to get to know you a little bit better. I've noticed you're very good at this particular skill set, and I'd like to see if you could talk to me about it just a little bit. Okay. And then that could possibly develop. It's like any other kind of relationship. It could possibly develop into something more, or maybe just glean some information at that point in time for that individual and move on. But again, I think like Ganesh said, it's just make it easy. Don't worry about them saying no. It's like any other thing that you do. If you don't ask, you don't get a yes. You're always going to get no if you never ask. So make sure you ask. Be brave. You're not asking them on a date. Make sure they don't make that mistake either. Be like, oh, I'd like to grab coffee with you. Oh, no, not that. Make sure you're giving her what you want.
That was my next question. So do you establish that real relationship that, hey, I mean, after that first conversation, if you feel like, hey, this person is willing to help me, there is some potential for me to take some guidance, do you establish that you are my mentor, or do you just make it like informal, like
it's pretty informal.
Informal.
I think it's pretty informal.
I think it's best to reduce the social baggage of being a mentor, it might be flattering to some people and they might be more willing to do so, but you need to feel out the person in that initial conversation and see if they have the capacity to take on a formality of being a mentor. There are informal mentors and formal mentors, and I think you have to play it out by ear. I mean, at work, there are formal programs where you can be assigned a mentor, which some established companies have that. And there are some informals where through, let's say, a presentation, you admire someone's skill set. I think the most important thing is that, to Mike's point, you will miss out on opportunities to be mentored or to mentor if you don't take the effort to shoot those shots, to send out those emails, to send out those outreach. So you should not have fear of doing that. But when you do shoot those shots, make sure they're high quality ones. Like you're shooting 2 feet away from a basketball hoop, you get a high percentage shot as opposed to from the half court line, unless you're Seth Curry, that sort of thing. So basically add specificity to your content. You know, you can say, I love to grab coffee. I really admire XYZ that you did. Play the new card. I'm new to the company. People generally like to meet new people. And so basically adding customized content will go a long way.
That reminds me of a fun incident. I used to mentor at product school, and they taught at products, oh, you should definitely reach out to people, ask them for a coffee. And one girl, I forgot her name, but she was literally messaging on LinkedIn, hey, I want to buy a I want to buy you a coffee. I was like, it's okay, you know, we can jump on a call. No, I really want to buy you a coffee. I was like, don't stick to advice, like, you know, literally, I'm not even a coffee person. I was like, hey, I told her that, you know, you can just
it doesn't have to be literally coffee, but that's the idea. It's something simple.
Do you ever wonder, you know, what if this person really hates coffee, what like me, or you really like tea? I mean, I like tea. So
that's on the mentor to be like, hey, I'd like to get tea instead.
I'm not a coffee person, especially like, you know, after work, the plan was to meet. I was like, hey, we can, you know, just like next time I can just stop by and we can chat. She was like, buying coffee was also a little odd to me that, hey, can't I buy my own coffee? So what I meant, I mean, just that reminded me of that fun incident. But
that's funny. It's like, a good point.
Yeah.
Starbucks has tea too, by the way.
I do have a quick question. Like, what is the most impactful mentor that you've had that
great question.
You would not be there today if it weren't for those people?
Wow.
It's a very thoughtful question.
It's powerful.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, let me start with my parents, right? There's no way I get to where I am without my parents' influences. They've been fantastic mentors in a lot of areas of my life. There are things that they didn't experience that I needed a mentor for. My business mentor was a successful businessman. I met him in my early 20s and saw that he knew what he was doing business-wise. He could give me advice on a lot of things, from finance to employees to hiring. And so that was really valuable at the stage that I was starting my own business, right? What to look out for, the things that I didn't know. And I held that advice in high regard. I just didn't feel, sometimes when you're younger, you feel like you know everything already or you want to work it out yourself. But the reality is you don't. A good mentor that's been successful in an area you're looking to enter can jump your success by years. You can be like, okay, well, I'm going to start here. And instead of being successful in 10 years, I'll be successful in 5 years. And literally that's what this gentleman did for me. He really put me on the right path, told me what to watch out for when I was starting my business. Really the big thing is how to manage employees properly. That was huge for me because I had never managed anybody in my life prior to starting my business. So that was a big boost to me.
Sounds good. Girish, what's your best experience with a mentor, and maybe how you approached?
That's a good question. I'm struggling to answer that myself because I've been privileged to have multiple mentors. I can't pick one specific person. So my parents, undoubtedly so, similar to Mike. My sister, my older sister, she's been a fantastic mentor where she's smarter than me, but she taught me some things. She's more street smart. I'm a textbook guy. I learned from equations, all that sort of stuff, where she teach me how to be more, you know, socially interactive or read people's behaviors. I don't think I would have been successful in those sort of things if it weren't for my family. On the business side of things, I got one through my first employer, which is sadly no more today, Lehman Brothers, and they had a mentorship program. There was this one Japanese guy that it was randomly assigned to. And I think the key reason why this mentorship program was successful is because it was purposely placing someone who was not necessarily a sponsor, someone who have direct oversight of your promotion or your career path, and someone outside of your current team who will have enough context and familiarity about what you're doing. So my mentor was this Japanese guy, super flamboyant. He was a salesman. He basically traded Japanese treasuries with the U.S. government, and
Wow.
basically he would wine and dine. And I was a vegetarian, and thanks to his mentorship, I'm a contextual vegetarian, meaning that if I'm around carnivores, I will be a carnivore. But if I'm around vegetarians, I will be vegetarian. So I learned how to eat sushi because of him, and learn about wining and dining, and learn about how politics work. So if it wasn't for him, I would not be here today.
Very interesting.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, if I have to think, I actually, when I was a student, I did not know this concept of mentoring and mentorship. I don't know that it was only me or back then. Like I told you, I grew up in India. I had a lot of teachers. I would call them as teachers or, some elderlies. Definitely, we all have
Hmm.
parents and cousins, and I come from a close-knit family. So yes, those were all great mentors. And then I think in my school, all my teachers were my great mentors, but I didn't have any formal mentor outside of these, either family or teachers. But recently, yeah, this concept, especially here currently in my career for last couple of years, it has been more, like everybody's on side of either taking you as a mentor, and then I was like, yeah, I also need to find mentors. I really need to grow in life. So recently, I actually have a mentor in India. So I met this person through my mom for some very very different thing, and this was like, I think this person just showed me something like my own strength which I never knew that existed, and it
Hmm.
changed my life in a very meaningful way. So as I was thinking whom should I consider who has really influenced my life, I think I would put this person who actually helps you identify your own strengths sometimes which you are kind
Yes,
of not even aware, and it just came out of a conversation which is not even related to the topic, and then I was like, would you can you become my mentor
absolutely.
also? Because I really wanted to thank the person. So yeah, I think sometimes mentoring in friendships and relationships, they have a fine line. As we said, there is no formal
Yeah.
kind of a border. So maybe it's a good time to even discuss about, how having good friends help us in our life.
Excellent.
Sometimes we read like, the five people you will interact the most shape you who you are. So I do see that because I get influenced in a positive or a negative manner with the kind of people I hang out with. I am gonna get
Positive
influenced by
or
you too
negative.
now.
So am I a negative influence or not? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think we need a little bit negative influence also. Too much positive is not good.
Depends on the moment in time, Ganesh.
I'll teach you how to become a contextual vegetarian. There we go.
I am vegetarian, by the way, born and raised vegetarian.
I
But
think one of the most
contextual,
important things for friendships, if I'm to pick one specific thing that I really look for in a friend that I think is really important, is somebody that is as excited about my successes
Mhm.
as I am, very supportive. I would be the same way. So if I'm a friend, I always get extremely happy for anybody else's success. So I want a friend that's really good about cheering me on, just like a teammate, right? Somebody that cheers the success and for the team and the group and whatever. That's big for me. So when I'm looking for people that, now you have to remember, I'm a parent and I have a good number of kids, more than most people would realize. I'm not going to mention the number, but it's more than most people would think.
You can text me if you want to find out.
And my time is very valuable because I feel like you can only have a certain number of really good relationships. So when I'm looking for a friend, I can't have somebody that creates a lot of disruption in my life or baggage that I have to carry or worry, right? So I want something very positive. That's what I look for.
Okay.
And it's not that you always pick your friends, but it's just that's part of the deal.
I think it's also important to recognize that just like stock portfolios, returns can be great once upon a time, and then it may taper out thereafter. Same thing with friendships. You get what you get returns from it based on what you put in. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Basically, putting on my product manager hat, if you want to segment to types of friendships, you would have three types. One is friends for a reason, like a teammate, colleague, where you have shared success. Friend for a season, let's say you're playing basketball and you're doing some sort of pickup basketball in winter, springtime, or you have friends for a lifetime. Obviously, everyone wants to have friends for a lifetime, but
Right.
those are hard to find. And usually they are usually formed in the formative years in college, in high school, or early on when we are setting up those relationships. But it's definitely possible, even today, if you're beyond college, beyond your first job. So you want to think about those types of friends and how you want to spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm not sure the first category I'll put that as friends, Ganesh, because a friendship for a reason. Hey, that's not friends. That's like it's a very give and take kind of a thing. I would just not count them
Yeah.
as friends. In my
I
opinion,
mean, people can call them acquaintances,
yeah.
colleagues, that sort of
But
thing.
right, could be somebody. So the definition of friendship is little modernized here.
Yeah, or friends with benefits, even that sort of thing.
Oh, you
Yeah,
did go there.
I
I
did
was
go there.
thinking that the whole time, Ganesh. It was in my mind. I didn't say it. You did. It's all good.
It's becoming more commonplace nowadays, but
I
I'm just saying.
understand.
I was about to ask you, like, how would you recommend people? Like, I agree. Like, when we were in school, college, it was so easy to make friends. And even now, like, I think you guys know that I have lived in different countries and I have changed like, my home. I don't even know what to call my home because California is the second place where I've spent most time outside my home. So I
Yeah.
have none of my friends from my school or college here, but whenever we meet, like sometimes they travel, it's like just connection instantly happens again, whether you're meeting them after a decade. But we all need friends again, so I would portray my segment as friends from your like childhood, and then new friends
Sure.
based on your interest rather than reason. I would say interest oriented friends, like okay, if I like to go for clubbing, I have friends for that. Maybe I gonna go for hiking, and then I have a friend circle for that. So interest based. But then there might be some other friends like based on, I'm thinking like what you want to do next in your life. So futuristic friends,
Sure.
if you want to do certain things together, learn something. But it's hard to find that first kind of friends again in your life, especially if you, maybe people get married, they move to different location, they change jobs, they so things happen. So
Yeah,
how to make new friends, I think that's a very, very difficult question, but I haven't figured that out on my own. Like the childhood kind of friends, how can somebody
Yeah, that's
find
very interesting.
that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think why are childhood friends so tied to you, right? It's because you go through experiences together, similar experiences together when you're growing up. You're in the same neighborhood, you go to the same schools, you experience the same teachers and influences around you. You run into the same problem people. So you have all these things that are like history that create this real solid connection, right? So how do you find that in a professional arena when the jumping around from one job is normal? It's not abnormal to be moving around the country quite a bit, or for one job to the next job. So how do you create those deep connections? And I think that's the thing. As I've gotten older, I've been looking more and more for people that I'll do things with on a consistent basis. I'm going to try to accomplish something new with these individuals. And it creates a better connection, just like your childhood friends where, okay, we did this together. I might have a buddy that I'm learning how to play golf with. And that becomes a really good friend because we're at the same point when we start playing golf together. And as time goes on, we hopefully develop our skills together and we become, we've gone through this. We've had the same trainers or this experience or this round. So it creates a good, solid connection between us. I think that's important. You find something that is a similar interest with a friend that you can do for a long period of time together. The other thing is I met some people in Colorado when I was skiing, and they created a friend group that when they were younger, they would all every year for a week, they would go to the same place for a ski trip, like 7 or 8 of them. And one person would plan it, and they would not miss. Every year they would do the same thing, and they would catch up on everything. And I think that's also a great thing to do if you want to maintain those connections. Once people start moving on with their career here, somebody has to pull all that together and have a common place for everybody to go.
I really appreciate that. I remember when I moved to New York, I became friends with my housemate. That was like, that was not like, I didn't know much about her, but it just happened, that we were staying together and the vibe was there. And she introduced me to her friends, whom I'm still friends. And we sometimes plan like, like a girls trip. We did a couple of trips, and that was a way to reunite. So yeah, I think that totally makes sense. Ganesh, how about you? You have mostly spent your life in New York, New Jersey, right? You haven't moved around
Yes,
a lot.
in the tri-state area. I mean,
Okay,
I
okay.
live in multiple places in California, in Chicago, Michigan. Basically, I've been a digital nomad. So it's interesting because, to Mike's point earlier, I created a pretty good set of friends when I was in that location. But then as I moved from location to location for jobs or for school or different types of reasons, it becomes harder to stay in touch because recency helps drives friendship as well as hobbies where being in person helps so much. So I think, with those New Year cards or season greetings or things like current events, for example, I have a friend group in LA. When I lived there for 3 years, we used to amazing weather in Santa Monica. What do? You got to go outside, hit the beach, hit the courts, and actually play tennis. And we created a friend group where we would talk about tennis, talk about tournaments, talk about
Right.
Things that were beyond tennis, such as COVID and things like that. And I think we are planning to have like a reunion every
Yes.
year or so where we can go to a tournament, like the U.S. Open, and hang out, which I think is pretty cool. But to everyone's point here, I think the friends that matter to me are those that are, graduating from friends for a reason into a season, and then from a season into a lifetime. People who commit to that, I think, help a lot. And living in New York City, I think it's a unique place. Even though it's so densely populated, like the borough of Manhattan, it can be quite lonely, where you're living in an apartment with thousands of people in it, but you're separated by walls. You don't know what other people are doing because of those walls. So hobbies and getting out in the real world helps a lot. Zoom calls, virtual trivia nights, all those things, they help break down those walls of loneliness.
I totally agree. And I think I have suffered from that. I have lived in like so many different countries and places. So I would make friends, then I would move. So that was like my life. And so I can totally relate to it. Sometimes it's draining also that, you miss your friends and then you have to restart. But I think that's the beauty also. Then you learn, okay, how to really, you have to make friends because they add to the life. And you brought a good point about COVID. So I think we all have realized the importance of friends, relationships more during current times. But thanks to all the, online stuff with Zoom and all that we are able to connect. Yeah. But
Yeah, for me, the last thing I want to say is I just want a good friend that has my back no matter what, right? Wherever I am.
There's a
whatever.
phrase that I use.
you need a difficult win.
If you get into a fight in a bar, who will have your back?
Yeah.
So,
same kind of idea. Not that I'm going looking for fights, especially with a guy my size. You don't do that. But yeah, I want somebody that's not, you look next to you when something's happening bad and they're still there and they're not running away. Or they're running with you, not necessarily, pushing you to the front. So yeah, I agree with you. You got to have somebody that's going to be there through thick and thin. They're not just going to throw you aside if something goes wrong for you.
You also mean to say that somebody who's kind of near, like the location also matters.
Yes.
So say if your best friend is 300 miles away, then it doesn't help you a lot.
That makes it difficult. That's true. Oh, this is great.
I do have a follow-up question.
Sure.
You have families, you have friends. Sometimes family members can be friends. Sometimes friends can be more meaningful than some family members. For example, I have some friends who are better friends than some cousins, even though cousins are family by blood. And then some of those friends and cousins. They may have, great relationships at once upon a time, but then it creates social baggage that you're not prepared to deal with and you need to reduce or taper them off.
Sure.
How do you think about that? I still struggle with this, and I'm not sure what the answer is to that.
I'm not quick to put aside friendships, to be honest with you. I'm pretty loyal by nature. So it's very hard for me to set aside, but I do think you have to reassess, and if it's time to move on from a friendship or a relationship, you have to do it, especially if it's keeping you down or making you feel poorly. You don't want to carry that around. I don't feel like anybody should have to feel like they have to go through something difficult just to maintain a friendship for somebody that's treating them poorly. You should go through a hardship with them if they're having a hard time, knowing that they need your help, but not so much so that they're putting you down or making your life difficult. Nobody should have to be subjected to that or put up with that.
So sometimes you need to set very clear boundaries and communicate that very clearly.
It's kind of an unspoken thing in my opinion. If it's bad, it's bad. And you're just like, listen, I don't need to do this anymore.
It is like a bro code where it's implicit but not explicit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I also think if you have to work on a relationship that much, like setting boundaries, then there's no beauty. Then actually it's some problem, right? People say even, with whatever you were saying, friends with benefits or somebody you are dating, or even in a spouse or a partner, if you have to go to that route, oh, I need to set my boundaries and stuff, it means that there is something inherently wrong because I think whether it's your family, friends, you should not think that much that, oh, is this person even taking my advantage? Then it's not a friendship, right?
Right,
Then
that's
it
right.
might be in some other category.
Yeah, I agree 100%, Serbi. That's absolutely right.
I would love to know on one more thing. So, most of the folks in today's world, we all are early on in our career. I think I used to go out and play with people. But now I think today's young generation is mostly addicted to their online world, their devices. So bots are going to be the best friend of future kids, I guess, the Alexas and Google Homes. So what do you recommend when these kids grow up, they actually move out from their comfort zone, from their home into a new city? How should they start new friendships?
What a topic. This is a difficult topic. I have younger kids, like a little bit older kids, but okay, it's still a social environment. You can still have fun and engagements and enjoy. I know a couple of my boys, they have online friends that they play games with, but then they go meet with them. But what they do is different than what I would do, right? I would go play golf or tennis or something of that sort, and they would go to an internet gaming bar or something of that sort where they're playing games together. They're just together when they're doing it. So it's definitely a different environment, but that doesn't mean that the friendship isn't still valid or the activity is still not valid. You're going through the same things. It's just different. And yeah, it's taking me a little bit to get used to, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Yeah. I know I have friends that they do this VR movie thing where they watch movies together using VR headsets. So they'll watch the same movie and they can like look at each other like they're there, except for they're not.
That's cool.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. So I think it's kind of an interesting new era where, yeah, if you move anywhere, you have the ability to find a way to connect with people. I think it's actually a good thing. So like your old friends you can connect with and still do these activities together, even though you're far apart.
Yeah, I think with the COVID world that we are now in, and hopefully will soon leave, given the vaccinations in force. I think once upon a time, physical interaction were the primary drivers, but then given the new norms that we have now, it would be a hybrid, where, to Mike's point with his friends, you have digital chats with video calls and what have you, but then once a year, annual meetups or monthly meetups or what have you to get that thing, because it's ease of convenience with virtual meetups. It can't be beat. But in person, there are certain things that you cannot get from virtual. So those sort of things are
like a hangover.
And I think one more thing I was thinking another interesting point here. So we all have friends with whom we meet once a year. It's like rekindling the relationship, but those are not like in our journey, in our day-to-day journey. So maybe there is maybe a need of that new kind of friends segment who are closer to you, as you were saying, Mike, whom you can depend on, rather than our existing friendships, and due to whatever reason we cannot meet them as often now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this is great. Thank you so much for hosting, Serby. I appreciate it. I had a great time today. This is actually a topic I love, so really enjoyable for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I can't wait to, go outside and play tennis with some of those guys again,
Oh
or
yeah.
check out golf. I mean, I have not really checked out golf. Maybe I should check that out too.
Yeah, and I think yeah, so basically mentors, friends, they just make our lives so rich. This is another angle, because we as human beings are differentiated from other species just because we are able to have that social aspect. Even I think, I don't know animals, birds, but they also flock in the groups. Like all these birds, they cross oceans apart. I do think they are able to make some friendships. They might choose their passengers and all like we do. So perhaps it's a very important aspect to live this life in a more
Yeah,
richer and better way.
incredibly. Yep, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Great. Take care.
You too.